So we have Barbara Palvin, we have Elaine, who's Chinese, we have Madison, who's a woman of colour, we have Sarah Sampao, who's kind of very strong. So I had to figure out looks that suited all of them, you know, and with tiny little tweaks. So basically, kind of turned everything on its head and said, why not wear a red lip for the day, and kind of have a lighter skin look. And then for the evening, it was kind of like a smudgy, smoky eye that's very easy to do with using matte nature on the lips, kind of a beigey lip. So I actually created a shade for the Mostra.
That's evening.
Actually created a shade for the Mostra, which uses a new gold pigment that has like a new gold pearl mixed with the red. So if you see, it's interesting because even though it's a matte formula, it kind of becomes much more vibrant and kind of like three-dimensional. So, and the packaging, I love the packaging, it's kind of like a little mini Oscar.
That's the Mostra.
English or?
English.
English, okay. Oh, Irish.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Me too, pleasure.
So anyway, so they're the looks, and it was kind of, I mean, it's interesting because they're very key Armani looks anyway, you know, using a lip or having an eye, but it's always about the simplicity, and it's about easy to use, the products kind of work themselves, nothing's too perfect, it's not about kind of perfectly contoured eyes with like a socket line and fake lashes, it's all very wearable, you know, which is what the brand is about. And you know, we've always been very interesting about Mr. Armani's fashion, because he was the first person, you guys are too young to know, but I was there back in the day, when he deconstructed the jacket. I was a kid, and it was like, you know, Brown's was the only store that carried Armani at the time. And I remember people lining up, you know, to buy Armani jackets, because it was this like revolutionary thing that you could wear a jacket that was kind of deconstructed and really comfortable. So the makeup line is very much like that. It's very kind of deconstructed. Every product works for itself. They're very easy to use, but you can still look glamorous if you want. You know, they're very, I think, modern. We never benchmark. And I think this tie-in with the cinema is very important, because even though the products themselves are very easy to use and they're kind of quite natural compared to other things, other brands out there, I think you can still get that oomph, you know, of kind of like little punch of glamour, you know. Okay.
No, I can just say, because you can look at the new Mostra colors in the golden packaging, and just bear in mind that what's different with the shade is that the golden pigment is actually a pigment which reflects light in 3 different ways. So it doesn't become like a paillette. It's diffusing light, so it almost looks like liquid gold. So it has a plumping effect. And the other thing, and the other thing I'm just adding is that all our formulas are always based on liquids, because liquids are much easier to use. So even, for instance, the Neo Nude powder that was used is a liquid that has been dehydrated and becomes liquid. So when you try, and even like the eye tint that we launched now in the fall, which is a very simple way of doing liquid eyeshadow, which is like fall proof, is also a liquid, because that makes it possible to take out too many white powders and everything that makes the color go gray. So all the textures have been worked in the service of the color result. Voila.
Voila. So, any questions about that? We like questions.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to speak for 50 minutes, so I have to
Questions held.
Did the gold pigment affect the formulation at all, or is it still kind of the same finish as the
It's a
original?
different finish, because the base is matte, so the gold finish is interesting because it makes it kind of, I wouldn't say satin, but it kind of has like a shine.
Yeah, but it's a bit matte.
Yeah, and it weirdly, it kind of acted like a plumper.
Yes, it does, because what happens when you have a sparkle reflects light just in one direction, so you see the dot. Here it reflects in 3 directions.
Because of the shape.
So it becomes like a diffused light, and that's why it almost looks a bit like wet and plumpy.
Yeah. It's actually very interesting with pearls, because, you know, I used to think it was just like blah, 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 but, you know, different shapes of pearls have different effects, which to me sounds so kind of like science fiction. But in fact, it's very interesting because you can have flat pearl, you can have like
concave, lamellar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Lamellar. But it's interesting how they all have a different effect. You know, because for me as a makeup artist, it was like, oh, give me some of that like pigment. I had no idea. You know, but it does create different finishes. And like for example, in the original Lip Maestro, the thing that set it apart from other liquid, we were the first ones to say, the thing that kind of I think really kind of helped it was the fact that the colours were so luminous because the pigment was three-dimensional. It was a three-dimensional special shaped pigment.
Yeah, and it almost created like a backlit colour, because what happened was that it had a kind of a silicone base, and that's like tons of round particles, and then the colour bounced in and it got like pushed back in a very strong way. So it's always a question of selecting the right
laser.
No, but it's always important to select all the different components so they work together. So it's not like a standard recipe.
Yeah, and like for example, we never benchmark ever. You know, we never take a product and say, okay, let's copy this, because I mean then we wouldn't have any kind of, I think, cred after that. So we always try and kind of create products that don't exist. Or what we do is we kind of look really back in time and kind of figure out, okay, that was a good idea, but what was wrong with it? For example, like the shades in the Mat Nature, so many different names, Mat Nature, because they wanted to do kind of like a kind of super nature, kind of like pushing the shades in the original Lip Magnet and Lip Maestro. But it was kind of, I said, you know, there's always this 90s revival that's been going on for a while, but what was wrong in the 90s when we wanted like a beige mouth? It was the foundation or concealer, so it was really ugly. You know, it was kind of like this, like. So we've basically taken the colours that were kind of cool then and reworked them in kind of modern technology, so they're much more interesting, much more comfortable, much more flattering. You know, because they do have kind of slight. The formula is much thinner, but also they're not just like dead. You know, because you were with children then, but I mean. Back in the day, everything was very everything was fake. Though we didn't have highlighter. We used to put 8-hour cream on, you know, and then like to have a beige lip, it was kind of like just dead concealer.
It looked like concealer, didn't it?
Yeah, and it was just like the same colour. The whole face was like the same colour with like a bit of 8-hour cream on the shade. It was very, you know. So it's kind of it's good to go back and be inspired, but then make it better, you know. So.
And the light diffusion, does that have a particular effect on camera? Obviously, in this is red carpet glamour, so.
On the golden, not really. I mean, there are certain things. On camera which go. For instance, power fabric is a very good, like we call it a paparazzi proof foundation, because it has a very particular soft focus matte effect. So you don't look shiny, but you look luminous at the same time, and you don't look flat. So Power Fabric has that effect on camera. I mean, to be very honest, we've never tried, because we're just launching the new whip. It's not like we tried with this new golden pearl to see if it had a specific effect on the light. Maybe you should try it. It has a plumping effect.
But wait, can I add something as a makeup artist? Because I feel that like the mistakes that you see sometimes on the red carpet are not due to the products, they're due to the makeup artist. You know, kind of like doing too much baking, or just kind of a new term, sorry, you know, or using too much highlighter, or not powdering, or using a foundation that isn't compatible with the skin type of the person, which is a lot of the time why you have a lot of shiny effect, because sometimes the face is actually rejecting the foundation. So I think, I mean, I don't want to lay the blame always at someone's door, but I think that, you know, if you have a big mistake on the red carpet, a lot of it is down to the kind of the craftsmanship behind it. Let's say that. That was a good question.
I've never heard that before, though, that your face can reject the foundation.
Yeah. I mean, you can't wear, not all skins can wear every type of foundation. I mean, it's kind of, you know, especially if you have oily skin, it's interesting because a lot of oily skin, they tend to use, I don't know what foundation you use, but they tend to kind of go for like oil absorbing, but they can actually make the pores overwork, you know, so you actually become oilier. It's like a kind of an oxymoron, you know, and it's, No, I've seen it all the time. There are like some people that they reject the foundation, it slides off, it's kind of, they put too much moisturiser on. That's a big no-no too, because a lot of people, they put their moisturiser on and then they put their foundation on straight away. They don't give the skin time to absorb the moisturiser. Like Prima Balm was like a moisturiser that's meant basically for makeup wearers, because it's a moisturiser, it's a primer, it's a plumper, and it also helps to set the makeup, but you have to give it time, because I've seen, like backstage, I call it cottage cheese skin, because it was like, okay, well, what foundation did you use? Neo Nude. I was like, well, how could that be possible? You know, like, or Maestro or whatever, like the thinnest foundations. And then it was because they put too much primer and they had just like put the makeup on straight on. So there are like certain practicalities about makeup that people don't seem to address. You know, and they give their tips and tricks, and it's like, well, you're kind of missing a very important part. Yeah. So the skin is the most important part. Yeah. All the time.
Who's your what's your favourite makeup look of all time? It's not related to this, but in terms of like a red carpet look.
I mean, you know, it's kind of, I think whatever makes somebody look beautiful, but it's also whatever makes somebody feel beautiful. You know, because it's like, if you're going to do a makeup on somebody and they feel really uncomfortable in it and they're not used to that, then they won't look good. You know, so I mean, I think a red lip always works. You know, I think maybe just like a corner lash sometimes. You know, I mean, it's something that kind of usually suits everybody. You know, but I mean, now it's become kind of ubiquitous. It's like every time you see like a Hollywood thing, it's kind of like red lip, and it's really like bad eyes, and I get crazy. Sorry, I was looking at the MTV Awards the other night at my age, and I was horrified by the makeup. I mean, it's like scary.
The very like dark with red, and then the dark is like very dirty looking.
Yeah, and they try and kind of be trendy, but it's like such a fail. Yeah. You know, and it's just not flattering. They don't look at the person. They're kind of just doing this
whatever
look.
They want.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, well, does that suit her? No, but they just don't care. You know, so. Well, give me a question.
Well, I'm like, skincare tips then for your perfect makeup. So you say obviously the makeup is beautiful and amazing products, but if skincare is so important, what would your 3 top tips be? Product-wise as well.
I always say that if I have 10 minutes to do the makeup, I spend 8 minutes on the skin.
Wow.
Basically, so I mean, cleansing is very important. Exfoliating gently.
Yeah.
I mean, that you should do that every day or whatever. But I mean, honestly, it's having a great makeup base of moisturizer, but giving it time to sink in. And under eye, like we have the T-zone thing, it's pretty good. You know, that's kind of, if you have lip problems too, you should exfoliate your lips. And then just choose the right foundation for your skin for the right time for what you're doing. You know, you don't have to have the same foundation every day. I mean, that's nothing. It's a bit like, why would you wear the same foundation? Sorry, but you know, it's like a wardrobe. You change your clothes, like you wouldn't wear the same outfit in the winter as you would in the day, or like, you know, so why not change your foundation?
Yeah. Just your expression when you said the word cleansing makes me think you've maybe something else to tell us a little bit about the, I suppose, cleansing fails that you see or feel are out there, and maybe more so from that's pretty simple, yeah. From a makeup artist point of view or backstage, what sort of mistakes have you seen where you just went, oh my god, stop?
How do you know if someone's in cleansed?
How do you know? I see it, I feel it, you know, because the skin is kind of, it's not just about having bad skin, it's like, there's a thing when people aren't clean. I know it's a terrible thing to say, but it's like, you just feel it from the fact that they haven't taken their makeup off, or, you know, there's like kind of residue, and it's like we cleanse them when we always clean as soon as they come in, we take everything off, but it's kind of, but saying that, I do like kind of mascara that's been on for a couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mascara. Why?
Yeah, because I like that kind of little smudge. I think it's sexy.
Oh, I had that this morning.
You
would have loved me.
I can tell you a very good Kate Moss story, but don't repeat me. Sorry, turn it off. So years ago, she was in New York.